Welcome to this episode of the Connecting Faith to Life podcast. I'm Trey Rhodes, the Connections Pastor at Northwood Baptist Church here in North Charleston, South Carolina. In just a few moments, our lead pastor, Dr. Tommy Metter, will be joining the conversation as well. In our crazy and chaotic world, our hope is that these few minutes will help you stop and reflect on your relationship with Jesus as you learn to connect Christ-centered faith to your everyday life. We're on episode 118 of the Connecting Faith to Life podcast, and I would like to remind you that there's a good list of topics that we've covered over the years, and if you would like to go back.
Multiple years.
Yes,
I guess 2 years.
It's over two.
The years.
Yeah, so we can say years now. Isn't
we can
great?
say years.
And anyway, so let people know that as well when you try to invite them to listen to the podcast. And by the way, this past week at our church, we had that little sign-up thing, and they actually clicked in and started listening to the podcast. So, yeah, in the bulletin itself, we have a link.
Oh, a QR
with one
code.
of the QR code. And so we had, 4 or 5 join because of it. So anyway, my
so
point
you have
is
stats on that tell you that somebody clicked the code. And,
yep. So that was this week. So anyway, that's great.
I'm proud of you, Pops. You old and know this technology and how to do QR codes. You know more than I do. I didn't even know we had QR code on the bulletin. So that's good.
We have QR codes all over them now so people can use their phones. So anyway, the point
Gives
is...
them something to do while I'm preaching.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, just get them to listen. Facebook, Twitter, however you can get them to, that'd be awesome. Even word of mouth. Believe it or not, you can actually use your mouth and invite people too. So that's
Doesn't
amazing.
require a QR code.
There are a lot of people that are dealing with, and especially with what we're going through. And if it's not directly, but it's people that they know. And there's this thing called grief. And I know Charlie Brown a long time ago said good grief, but I really have to ask, is there anything good about grief? Is it something that we can use kind of as a tool, or is it something that we just have to avoid, or how do we deal with grief?
Yeah.
Is there a biblical model? How do we do this? Because a lot of people struggle with grief.
Yeah, so we would just want to think about how to help people who are grieving, because, you and I, Trey, we've been at this a long time. You've been a pastor now for, I don't know, a bunch of years.
About 30 years,
And I've been a pastor not quite that long, but actually getting there. I've been there 20.
You're getting up there.
I mean, you're old enough now in pastoral ministry that you're getting called back from churches you used to pastor to preach homecomings.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
That is a big deal. I've never been invited to preach a homecoming.
I remember when I invited myself to preach my first homecoming. And at my church, I said, I think I'm going to preach a homecoming. Of course, I got reamed out. And
always supposed to have a guest preacher for homecoming. You can't preach it yourself.
I know,
that's like the first rule.
Yeah, I know. But anyway, I was so proud of myself that I was a pastor. I thought everybody would want to hear me preach, but they didn't. So,
yeah.
Anyway, so
you preached a homecoming this past Sunday at the church you pastored years ago, and
yes, many years ago.
And it was a good Sunday.
It was a good Sunday. Had a great time and preached my lungs out, my throat out, but it was good. We had a good time.
Don't need to yell so much, Trey.
I know you told me I don't have to yell, but man, when I get in those situations, I just something in me. Anyway, whatever.
I don't know if churches do homecomings much anymore. You don't really hear about that much. I know when I was growing up, that was a big deal. You looked forward to homecoming because you got a free meal after church.
Oh, my heavens. And it was always...
But the services were so long.
It wasn't really that bad. I think by the time I finished preaching, it was about 11:45, which was not bad because they started at 10, 15, but they had a bunch of stuff beforehand, all the things that you do at homecoming.
That was the one Sunday a year that you were guaranteed fried chicken. I know that.
And we did. We had fried chicken, Bubba.
You can't have a homecoming service without fried chicken.
It was good.
From Church's Chicken.
I don't know where it was from. I think it was actually Piggly Wiggly fried chicken. But
yeah,
anyway.
we're that's the thing. We're getting kind of away from the traditional chicken places for our chicken dinners. Mm-hmm. I mean, Publix has pretty good fried chicken, but come on, we need some Bojangles or Popeyes or something.
Well, I don't know.
You like Popeyes fried chicken? They've got the best fried chicken.
Popeyes
they don't have the best chicken sandwich, but they have the best, like fried chicken.
I know that Piggly Wiggly used to do all pan fried chicken, and I think they've changed all that now. But anyway, there was a point where everybody went to Piggly
chicken
Wiggly
from Popeyes.
Oh
my goodness,
it's good stuff.
It is good.
There's no doubt.
We got something we're supposed to be talking about, Trey.
Yes, we're going to be talking about grief and how to deal with it, and what we do because of it. And does the Bible actually have anything to say about it?
Yeah, it does. So we want to think through this because you have been in situations before where someone close to you lost someone they loved, or went through a situation that caused grief. might not have been the loss of a loved one through death, but maybe, a divorce or whatever the case may be. And so you're around probably on a fairly regular basis, whether you know it or not, people who are grieving. Mm-hmm. And how do you help someone who's grieving? And you think about, especially when you know someone who's lost a loved one, someone has died.
Yes.
How do you help them? Because I think what I've seen over the years, and you and I, Trey, we're kind of, rare birds because we're in ministry. And so we deal with grieving people quite a bit. I can't even begin to tell you. I was trying to think about it. Just the number of funerals I've done over the years. I mean, it's been hundreds of funerals I've done.
My first year at my first church, 32 funerals.
Yeah, that's wild.
So,
I don't do near as many here at Northwood as I did in previous churches, in large part because we have a, fairly younger church. And so it's just not, like in other places where I was doing them, it felt like almost on a weekly basis I was doing a funeral. Now, I think I might do maybe 7 to 10 a year. Here at Northwood, maybe?
Probably, yeah. Sounds right.
Which it was nothing to do 15, 20, 25 a year in previous churches. And, I remember the first, and it's different. I think about when I lived in Louisiana, the whole process was different.
Oh, yeah. Everywhere you go, there's different ways to do things.
So here, our tradition, our culture here, you have maybe the night before, you have a visitation where you go see the family, or it's more common here now, you have a visitation right before the service. Yeah, they have an hour before the service. You come by and you see the family, and then you have the service, and which I kind of like that because it, you kind of, it's one day, instead of having the family begin. But at any rate, when I was in Louisiana, just because the Catholic influence, that's kind of spilled over into all of the churches there, not the Catholic doctrine, but Catholic, the wake thing, wakes, And so we have a visitation where there you would have a wake, which was wild. I'd never experienced that until I moved to Louisiana, where they would literally, stand around the body for hours. Hours before you had a funeral service. And I remember the first wake I went to, because I was pastor of a small church. I figured I needed to be there the whole time. Wow. We stood around the body. It must have been 4 or 5 hours before we had the service. It was terrible.
Yeah. Well, we have in rural South Carolina, we have this term setting up. They mean sitting up, but the word is setting up. That's how they say it. And it's very similar. I mean, you go and you just hang and you talk and you talk and you talk. And you're literally, like you say,
just
around the casket.
The body.
And in the Baptist world, we don't drink. So nobody's drinking. It's just, it's just you're sitting there and talking. You have your arms crossed, those kind of things. A lot of the deacons are smoking, but,
right.
But, it's just the way it is. And, I don't know if that helped them deal with grief. I don't know, but I really don't know. But literally, you went the night before, and that's what you did. And they would literally, that's why they called it setting up, because they would stay up all night long, all night long with the body.
Yeah, so. Just kind of weird. Maybe not weird stuff. That's the bad term, but just different stuff. We all have our different traditions and what have you. And I know this. I know people listening today. I know we have people listening that some of you have never even been to a funeral. You haven't lost someone close to you, and just the whole idea of going to a funeral or how to talk to someone who's lost someone is just kind of foreign to you. Some of us, quite honest, are scared to go to a funeral. We avoid it because we just don't know how to handle it, how to, talk to people, whatever the case may be.
So what to say. A lot of times people are just concerned with that.
I think this really is going to be a helpful issue to talk through, because we're all going to deal with it at some point or another. We're going to lose someone that we love, or we're going to know people who have lost people that they love, and just how to have conversations and how to bring just some comfort to those who are grieving, I think is really important. Our sound engineer asked before we got started, what's the difference between grieving and mourning? I had no idea, but Google did.
Google had a great idea.
Google knows everything. So I asked Google.
And what did Google say?
Google said, grieving is kind of that state of being, that when you're grieving, it's just that process of dealing with with the loss, right? Where mourning is the outward expression of grieving. So, that makes sense. You think about in the Bible, in biblical times, when they would actually hire professional mourners. When someone died, they would pay people to come in and just cry. That's kind of weird. I'm glad we don't do that anymore.
That is about the strangest
thing I've
ever heard.
Give you $50 an hour to come in and cry.
To me, that is strange.
Yeah. But it was a big deal.
It was.
And I've been in other cultures where I've been a part of funerals and what have you. And, in our Western American culture, we try to put on a happy face in the midst of grief, right? Where in other cultures, it is natural and normal and encouraged just to cry it all out, you know? And so I've been in some other cultural settings where it's a lot louder funeral service than what I'm used to, because they're just real expressive and emotive in the way they're expressing their grief.
Yeah, well, even in the Baptist circles that we're in, we have decided to change it from a mourning time to a time of celebration. Over and over again, celebrating the life of Jesus, celebrating the life of that person or whatever.
Which is good.
And it's up-tempo music, and you know, people give testimony of how good God was and all those things. So
and we've been to funerals like that where it is very celebratory, and that's good. I think that's a good thing. But there's also nothing wrong with actually mourning.
Of course not.
That's part of the process to cry your eyes out, because there is a loss there that you need to acknowledge and work through. So let's just talk real quick. I want to read a scripture to you, and we'll talk through some things and try to put some things together to help you think through how you can help people who are grieving. So here's a scripture that's really helpful for us. 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 3-7 say this: "Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and the God of all comfort. He comforts us in all our afflictions, so we may be able to comfort those who are in any kind of affliction, through the comfort we ourselves receive from God. For just as the sufferings of Christ overflow to us, so also through Christ our comfort overflows. If we are afflicted, it is for your comfort and salvation. If we are comforted, it is for your comfort, which produces in you patient endurance of the same sufferings that we suffer. And our hope for you is firm, because we know that as you share in the sufferings, so you will also share in the comfort." Now, this passage isn't necessarily talking about helping people who are suffering the loss of a loved one, but it is talking about the comfort of God. That when we go through times of affliction, God comforts us, and not only does He comfort us in those times of affliction, He teaches us how to be a comfort to other people, right? And so there is something about us being used by God to bring comfort, the comfort of God, into the lives of people when they are dealing with loss, right? So some of you know this, you've heard this before, but just kind of thinking through before we talk about how to help people grieve, just the 7 stages of grief. You can Google this kind of stuff. You can find different stages of grief, but this is typically what happens when you experience the loss of a loved one. One, you're shocked. Yeah. And you might even, go through a time of denial. Like, this isn't really happening. That person is just going to walk around the door and they're going to be home when I get there, kind of thing. And so when you hear of someone who's lost a loved one, those first 24 hours or so, they're hard, because in a lot of ways it is a shock. You can't believe it's happening, right? Or even if you think about someone who's grieving over a divorce, can't believe my spouse isn't here anymore. Right. They're going to come back. It's going to be okay. Right. And so there's that shock and denial. And then there's also that second stage, which is pain and guilt. So just that's when the grief really starts to set in the morning, the pain and the guilt and the guilt of feeling the sorrow and the sadness, like I shouldn't feel this way, or maybe the guilt of, if I grieve outwardly, it's going to, embarrass people, or, I'm going to be a burden on someone else, and I don't want to be a burden on someone else. And so there's that stage of grief where you feel the pain and you feel guilty for having that pain. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I think there's also, this guilt. What could I have done differently? Yeah. Would he have still been here?
Yeah, there's that.
Or even, I never got it right with him. I know that the people that hurt the most at funerals are typically people that had unfinished business with the person passed.
Absolutely.
A lot of guilt involved.
Yeah. There. And so that leads into, anger and bargaining. And the anger, it might be anger at the person who died. Yeah. If he'd have done things differently, if he'd have lived a healthier life, or whatever the case may be, he wouldn't be where he's at right now. Anger with God. God, how could you do this to me? How could you put me through this kind of loss? And then bargaining, God, if you'll make this better, then I will, or whatever the case may be. And so that's just a stage of grief that you go through. And then you go to the stage of depression. And you know this, Trey. I mean, you have a funeral service for somebody and you help them through that day, but after that day, there's still grief. And that grief can last for a while. And it could be weeks later or months later or years later. You're still kind of depressed because of that loss that you're working through. And so that's a stage of grief. But then for most people, and this is all part of the process, and it's not abnormal if you're going through this process. And in some ways, it's a healthy process. It's a way that God's designed us. But then there's finally at some point that upward turn, right? Yeah. When you get to the point where you say, okay, this has been hard, but it's going to be okay. This has been difficult, but it's going to be okay. And then there's a kind of this reconstruction period where you begin to put life back together, right? You begin to maybe get out a little bit more, or you begin to move on and do some things that you couldn't imagine doing alone, right? I mean, I know for some people who are grieving, especially Christians who are active in a church, for that woman who lost her husband, or vice versa, that husband that lost her wife, it's a big step for them to come back to church by themselves. Yeah. Because for years, you think about that couple that's been married 30, 40, 50 years. For years, they've come to church together. They've sat in the same place together. They've got so many memories that they've made within the local church as a couple that it's hard for that wife to come back to church by herself. Yeah, that's a big step,
We've even had people that said, I love our church, but I just too many memories. I can't. I have to go to another church.
Yeah, we've seen that. Absolutely. Yeah. That people will go to another church because they just can't come back to the same church anymore because of all the memories associated there. Yeah. But then there's that acceptance and hope, right? That you finally, you reconstruct, you put things back together, and there's this acceptance, life is going to be okay, and even hope that there's going to be a better day, right? That I'm going to come through this. And so, when someone dies and we're trying to help someone who's grieving the loss of a loved one, you're probably ministering to them in those first couple of stages, right? The shock and denial, especially when you're thinking about those first few days, and you're going to reach out to them. Hey, I'm sorry that your loved one died, or you go to a funeral service. That person who's grieving is still in the stage of shock and denial, or maybe the pain and guilt. And just kind of recognizing that as you go in, this is where this person is, right? Right. And hopefully you're going to continue to minister to them in the months ahead. You're going to try to reach out to them every now and then. But just know in those first few days, that's where they are, shock and denial, and maybe pain and guilt.
So as they're in that way, that very difficult way of life, I think we can look at 5 ways that we can help grieving people.
Yeah. So let's be quick about this. Yeah. So the first way is this: you acknowledge the grief and you be present.
Exactly.
You're there.
You're just there.
So don't say nothing. And I think there's sometimes the temptation when somebody's grieving just to keep your mouth shut.
I've heard people say that and be proud of themselves, sort of thing.
Because you don't know what to say. So since I don't know what to say, I'll just say nothing. I'll be there, but I'm not going to say anything, right? Or I'm going to at least keep the conversation just kind of, very surfacey and not address what's actually happened. And so, listen, it's wise to, and I know it's awkward, but it's wise to acknowledge the grief. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry for your loss.
Yeah, I'm sorry for your loss.
I'm so sorry.
I know you're hurting. All those kinds of things. And so don't say nothing. Now, there's power in just being present. So years ago, I remember we had a lady die in one of the churches I pastored, and it was probably one of the I was new in ministry. One of the first, times I had been in the room when somebody actually died. Wow. I was in my early 20s, 24, 25 years old, and was there, and you've been there. I've been there since, a number of times. But that first time I actually watched someone breathe their last breath. And I didn't say a whole lot. I prayed for the lady as she was getting ready to go home and be with the Lord. And I remember the daughter, she was there, and the lady was older who passed away. She was probably in her 80s, so her daughter was probably in her late 50s, early 60s. Here I was, this 25-year-old kid ministering to this family, and I remember her saying to me, and it just has kind of stuck with me over the years. I remember her saying to me, "It was just so good to have you present in the room." Just being there.
Deal.
It was a big deal. It was a big deal. And I said a few things, but I didn't say a whole lot. I didn't engage in deep conversation while the lady was dying, but I was there. And so that meant a lot. And sometimes, your presence with someone who's grieving, it does mean a lot. But in that presence, you don't have to stay silent. Say some things, sure. Say some things like, man, I'm sorry, and pray with that person. And, I've found it real helpful too, just what families love to hear when someone has died is they love to hear the memories.
Oh yeah. This is what remember when brother so-and-so did this.
Or there might be some stories about that loved one that, that family doesn't know. Some memories that you have, something you did with that person who died, that that spouse or that husband or those kids, they don't know about. And just to share, hey, this one time me and your dad did this, or me and your sister did this, and and just sharing that memory is really, really good and healthy. And so all that to say, acknowledge the grief and be present.
Amen.
Engage the conversation.
Number 2, grieve with the person and remind them of their hope.
Yeah. So grieve with the person.
Yeah, we have to grieve with them.
It is a sad day for that person who lost someone. And just remembering this, right? We say that death is just a natural part of life, when really it's not.
It's not.
It's not what God intended, right? I mean, when you think about when Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden, what God intended is that they would live with Him, in this perfect, intimate relationship, but sin messed that up, and sin brought death into the world. So you think about it, death is very unnatural. It is an unwelcome guest, right?
Exactly.
And there's going to be a day when death is no more, that Christ is going to return, and He's going to call us home with Him, and death will be gone, right?
Amen.
So, but we think about it as something natural, when the reality is it is unnatural. And so since it is unnatural, it is right to grieve it. When someone dies, we are experiencing a loss that should not be. It is not right that someone dies, right? Because that is the effect and result of sin.
I was going to say it's about the sin.
We have good intentions when we say these kinds of things, but in the moment, I mean, it's not really what people want to hear. When you say something like, "Hey, man, hey, isn't it great that he's in heaven?" Well, yeah, it's great. But I'd much rather him be here with me right now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's a real loss there. And so just acknowledging that. I mean, and it is not, wrong to say, "Hey, aren't you glad that person's in heaven?" Just be careful with how you say it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And choose a good time. There's time to say it too.
Right. I mean, and every service I preach, when I preach a service for someone who is, a believer, I'm going to remind them that person's with Christ, but also at the same time I want to acknowledge the grief. Hey, you're experiencing loss. I'm sorry. I'm grieving with you, but we do have hope. We have hope that someday we will see this person again. All those things are right to say. I guess what I'm saying is using wisdom in how you say those things, because what that person who's lost that loved one is dealing with, they're dealing with a real loss. Yes, it is great that loved one is in heaven with Jesus. But for that person in that moment, it doesn't feel so great.
No, it doesn't.
Because they've lost their husband, or they've lost their spouse, or they've lost their child, or they've lost their sibling, or whatever the case may be. It doesn't feel so great in that moment. And so just grieving with that person, yet at the same time reminding them of their hope, just being, delicate in how you do that.
Amen. Acknowledge the grief and be present. Grieve with the person, remind them of their hope. And then third, ask the right questions.
Yeah, so the wrong question to ask when someone is grieving is, "How you doing?"
Well, they're doing terrible.
They're not doing so well.
I'm telling you right now.
I mean, I'm doing great. No, you're not. So, I mean, just knowing those right questions to ask, right? Maybe not how are you doing, but how can I pray for you?
Yeah, that's a good one.
How can I pray for your family? How can I help you? Or how you sleeping? Or are you getting,
I say, have you been able to rest any?
Have you been able to rest any? Or are you spending time with family?
Yeah.
Those kind of things. I mean, asking those right questions and just avoiding the wrong question. The wrong question to ask is, "Hey, how you doing?" Well, you're not doing so good. You just lost a loved one. So just, again, this is just kind of figuring out, in those moments I have to minister to someone, how can I do it effectively, and how can I use my words in a way that's going to provide some comfort rather than just talking to talk. Again,
it's being careful. It's being
careful.
Wise.
Yeah.
It's a timing issue.
Yeah.
There's going to be times when you can say, "How you doing?" 3 months down the road,
That's
you do
right.
need to know
That's
how
right.
they're doing.
That's right. That's right.
Number 4, we need to also, and this is tough in our world today, and that's make time.
Yeah, just make time. I mean, you think about it, when someone dies, it's hard. It's hard for that person who's lost their loved one to be alone, because when they're alone, what are they thinking about? Their grief,
exactly,
their sadness, the loss. And so again, it's just that being present in the lives of someone. And so and sometimes we can't always do this, but if you can, make time for a visit. Go and just spend time with that person. That phone call means a lot. That text message means a lot. That handwritten note means a lot. And so again, and don't make excuses. What I mean by that is, oftentimes we don't make time because we hadn't made time before. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We have maybe, and I've done this. I mean, we're all guilty of this. That someone passes away and it's someone I care about, but I hadn't seen them in months maybe.
Yeah,
and then I feel guilty for that. And so then I don't want to make time for that person's spouse or that person's, children because, I didn't make the effort while that person was alive to spend time with him or her in their last days. And so now so it kind of feels ingenuine, but I can't make excuse. It is what it is at this point.
Yeah.
And I can right my, wrong or whatever the case may be by now making the intentional effort to spend time with that grieving family, to send them that note, to go by and pay them a visit or whatever the case may be. And that really does mean a lot to that family. And so making time really is important.
Yeah. It's a where you find them sort of issue.
Yeah.
So wherever they are, that's where you have to meet them.
Yeah, exactly.
If you happen to not be there the last weeks or the last month, whatever it was, you can now at this point begin to offer the comfort that they need.
And you don't have to make excuses to the family either.
And I would not make excuses.
You don't have to say, well, I'm sorry I wasn't here because this and this and this. Just where they are, where you are right now. Hey, I'm just coming by to check on you, let you know I love you and care for you, and I'm praying for you, and just want to be here with you for a little bit.
Amen.
That's it. So make time.
And then finally, we help in specific ways. And this is the big one, because you always ask, is there anything I can do? And they can't even think at that point.
They can't think, right? I mean, how can I help you? I don't know. I mean, because in grief, we're not thinking clearly or not thinking well or whatever the case may be. And so...
And by the way, it's not always food. I think everybody thinks, well, I'm going to bring you fried chicken.
Yeah.
Well, they've got 14 boxes of fried chicken. They don't need any more. So you've got to think it through. I heard one family actually say, hey, can we polish your shoes? I know that's not a big deal these days. But
polish your shoes.
Yeah, everybody for the funeral.
For the funeral needs some clean shoes.
Yeah. So anyway,
or go by and cut somebody's grass. Or, there's lots of practical things that you can do to help someone while they're getting through the process of grieving. And so instead of saying, hey, if I can help you, let me know. Say something like, hey, can I bring you dinner tonight? I'd love to. Well, we have 15 boxes of fried chicken. Okay, maybe that's not the best idea. Can I come by and cut your grass then? Or maybe not even asking those things.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just going by and doing it.
I was going to say, just do it.
Just do it.
Just do
it. I'm going to go. And now with the food thing, be careful, because people do usually get inundated with meals when they lose a loved one. So that might be something to ask. Don't just bring them fried chicken.
Maybe you could wash their dishes or take out the garbage things like that.
Things you can just show up and cut the grass. Those things are just really helpful. And so just looking for ways to show practical help, that really does go a long way. And so, help them in specific ways. But, you think about grief, Trey. I mean, we're all going to go through it. We all know people who've gone through it, and just trying to help each other through the process, not being, afraid to minister or not trying to avoid it because it feels uncomfortable or awkward, but just jumping in there and doing the best you can to show love. And at the end of the day, that person's going to remember that you did your best to show them love and care, and that's important.
And for you parents, I recommended, and this is how I treated my children. I didn't want their grandparents to be the first person that they would experience death with, because I wanted them to be able to deal with death. Yeah. And so at very early ages, as they could, not as babies, but as they understood, I would actually introduce them to death gradually. People that in our church and other things, and they would go to funerals. Just dealt with a family recently where those children had their father passed, and they had never been to a funeral. And it's tough. It's tough. It's super tough.
It's tough.
So it's not, I guess it's not natural, but it is normal.
It's part of life. It does happen.
There's only one way we're getting off this world unless Jesus returns, and that's through that box. We're going to get in that box. So, we need to also address it with our children and help them to learn how people grieve and all those things and how important it is.
Yeah.
All right, Pastor. Well, that's been great. So you have somebody that has just passed away, or maybe they're in that situation, and people are preparing. What is the best way that they can express this way of dealing with grief?
Well, the first thing you do is pray for that person, right? That you never go wrong with praying for that person.
Always
that's always a good place to start. But then I would just say make some time. Make the phone call.
I agree.
Go by for a visit. Just make some time and show that person you care.
Those two things are beautiful. And you can actually pray for them when you're on the phone with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Praying with people is just really powerful. People want to know that you care about them. They just do. And so show them that you care. Amen. I know this has been kind of a different episode today. But hopefully it's been helpful, giving you something to think about, in the days ahead as you help people who are grieving. So if you've been listening to the podcast episode and it's been a blessing to you, go ahead right now and hit the subscribe button so you can have new content delivered to your device every single week. Leave us a 5-star review. That always helps to get the word out about the podcast. And as always, we hope today's episode has helped you connect faith to life.